Hi, Doug with Aytwit Engineering here. It's been a while since I've done a video, but wanted to recap my stilted gardens that I made a few videos back. I just made a quick video how I made them. So this whole thing was kind of experimental, so wanted to make a video about how the experiment turned out, and the gist is pretty darn good. This was a success on multiple fronts. I guess I'll explain why I made my garden beds up on stilts, and there are three main reasons. One is that, well, it's a little cloudy now, but this exact spot on our property is gets the most sunlight overall throughout all the different seasons and sun angles and whatnot. Literally this exact spot. If the garden beds were down, just resting on the deck, they would get like half of the sunlight because of, just my roof here and everything. So that's one reason, really good sun exposure here. Second reason is animals. So we have problems with bears and deers and turkeys and everything. And yeah, for the most part, this would be too much trouble for any animal to get at. A deer's not going to come up on our deck. Yeah, a bear might come up on our deck, but it's kind of noticeable that they're a bit shy, not too shy, but a bit shy. So that's the second reason. Animals don't have to make a fence or anything. And third reason is, well, it's just nice and ergonomic. It's nice to just walk up and pick your vegetables. You may recall this tarp wasn't originally on part of my structure here. It's I just did it just to maybe preserve the wood from the sun graying it and from moisture as much as possible, rather than coat it in some kind of chemical which might leach into the soil. So I made just these little panels out of old tarp that had holes in it anyway, and just stapled them around. Kind of looks like a bathtub now, and just protect the wood. Now, as far as safety goes, again, this was highly experimental. I do not recommend trying this at home. Each one of these in total is a few hundred pounds. The dirt does add up real quickly, the dirt weight. You can see, these are on stilts, but it's very easy to wobble. The structural aspect of these is 3 half-inch dowel pegs for each stilt. So 12 half-inch dowel pegs. You can do the math of what that would equal. So you have a few hundred pounds being supported by those dowels, and it did settle a little bit. Even with the dowels, it's settled like 1/8 of an inch, 2/8 of an inch, something like that. But it has stabilized. So weight-wise, it's still a little scary to have that much weight just wobbling up there on your deck, but it is stable enough. And another aspect to the weight you have to make sure of if you do want to try this at home, again, don't do it, but if you do, just make sure your deck, all the support braces and such underneath, can handle the weight. This is something I had to inspect myself and really make sure of. I almost actually made the mistake of putting these on another part of my deck that in hindsight would not have been able to handle the weight. So definitely keep that in mind. That all said, this is not something I'm probably going to keep long term, just because over the years you don't know when it's finally going to collapse, and if it did, or if a kid jumped on it or banged into it, or a bear, whatever, it could be catastrophic. So but nonetheless, the experiment was a success up until now. Another aspect to this is experimental aspect is that this garden bed is purely dirt and compost, and this garden bed, on the advice and great suggestion by my brother, to use a technique called Hügelkultur. I don't know how to pronounce it, but link in the description. And basically, I just like in the last video I made, I just filled a bunch of rotten birch logs on the bottom before putting dirt on top. And what this does is just provides a rich kind of microbial fungal base for the soil. It also it helps it keep moisture a lot better, because these rotten logs are like sponges. So and the results of that experiment, it doesn't get exactly this garden bed gets a little more sunlight, but overall I would say that this garden bed did indeed provide much more of a richer base for things to grow out of. We've harvested quite a bit already, but like you can see how nice and healthy the beets were, for example. As far as the types of vegetables to grow, I don't know, like, that's not my territory, that's what my wife does, but we have beets and carrots and celery and arugula and some radishes in here, and everything grew just fine. There's, in fact, better than I would normally expect in a in-ground garden. So that's it for these two. Let's go up to my other deck and check out another garden bed I made. Similar situation to these two, just some small differences. All right, here we are up on my back deck above my garage, and this is the last garden bed I made. I was originally going to have another garden bed right here, but again, speaking of the weight, I could not be sure that this deck would support the weight without causing problems and not necessarily collapsing into my garage, but who knows, right? So even putting one of these up here is a little bit risky, but it's worked out well. This is all tomato plants and some herbs and stuff. Yeah, that's my wife's territory, but so I don't really know about that stuff. I'm an engineer, and the engineering challenge with this one was getting all this dirt up to my back deck without like going through the house and everything, because it was like 12 buckets or something. So yeah, check this video out, this little clip, how I rigged up a ladder with runners and made a quick hoisting system to get this dirt up here. This spot is the spot in our property that gets the second most amount of light, and again, you need the stilts, otherwise you would be cutting the hours of sunlight that you get drastically. So in this case, it's not for the animals necessarily. They wouldn't be able to make it up here, hopefully. But overall, great success. Stilted gardens, who would have thunk it? But worked out pretty well. If you had any similar success or similar ideas, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.